3, 2, 1, bam, blam, something. All right. How's everybody doing today? I'm Jim, and I am going to be reviewing the Emove Cruiser, which is behind me over here. You probably already saw my unboxing of the orange Cruiser by my son. I decided to review this white one. I measured this at 54.1 pounds. And you can see dimension-wise, it's just about 48 inches to the ends. And then when you fold it down, basically when you fold the scooters, I'll show in a minute, basically the deck ends up being your widest point. Go on to some of the manufacturer's specs just so you know. So they say this will go 25 miles per hour with a 62-mile range. I didn't see exactly what size rider that is spec'd out for, but as part of this initial review, I'm going to ride this thing. I've already rode just a little over 3 miles. I'm probably not going to do this all today. I'm going to actually finish the review tomorrow, and I'm going to take this down to about 20% battery, and so give you a good idea what the range was for me. This is also rated for up to 352-pound riders. It also says 2 riders. In some places I've seen it said you could have 2 people on it, which it doesn't really surprise me. The deck size is big enough to accommodate that, I think. And you'd have to be it wouldn't be like 2 adults comfortably, but an adult and a kid, that should work. You can see here you got a generous deck, and I wear a size, these are a size 10.5. And so you can see I have lots of foot positions on this deck. And so I measured the deck as 22 inches long by 9.5 inches wide. And just knowing that right here on the edge there's a little taper, so that the deck width is the usable deck width is slightly less than that. Still, it's plenty for being able to ride feet side to side for almost anybody, I think. The clearance of the deck is 5 inches, and then the deck is 7.5 inches off the ground. So with the deck height this high, it is a little more difficult to kick if you want to kick along. But this scooter really, it's, at its weight of over 50 pounds, it's not really made for that. So within this deck under here is, the claim to fame. It's a 52 volt, 30.5 amp hour battery that gives you over 1,500 watt hours of capacity. And these are LG cells, and it's running through a 25 amp controller back to this rear 600 watt rear hub motor. Now that combination so running through that 25 amp controller, you're obviously getting a lot more than 600 watts of power, because it depends on the battery voltage of 52 volts and the controller. So you're getting a lot of output back here. So torque wise, I'm not sure the torque specs. If I find that, I'll put that on the screen. Battery motor, brakes are now a very important piece. So you got these X-Tech. These are mechanically actuated hydraulic disc brakes. Dual piston, so it can squeeze from both sides. And you're going through 140 millimeter rotors. And you get the exact same thing here on the back. Controlling those is, pretty standard, not really that fancy of a 4-finger lever with motor cutoffs built in. You see how with Emove, there's a lot of connects up in here, so it makes a lot of these things on the dash modularly replaceable. Coming up to the cockpit here, you got kind of the standard, I kind of think of it as the standard folding collar mechanism. This slides back and you pull them up, and I have this one set tightly and this one set a little looser, just to kind of show how easy and hard these might be to work with. So key turns this voltmeter on, which gives you a voltage before you can power on the display. And it's a basic display with trip, distance, odometer. I only have 18 miles on this one. current voltage, which is close to that right now, but it sometimes varies. I would expect this voltage to be more accurate, but I haven't been able to measure it to confirm that. So you got your speed there with your current speed limit mode you're in. You have to hit the power button to make that editable, and so you have 3 levels of speed, not assist, but you have 3 levels of speed limitation. Got the 5-bar battery indicator. This setting is supposed to be charge cycles, but I've never really, all of these I'm seeing just say 2 when you get to it. I have this set into miles per hour. And there's a lot of settings with Emove, and a lot of these displays, honestly, that you can go in there and change the amount of acceleration, the degree of electronic braking, and there's some parameters that you adjust in there to customize it. Over on this side, you have a light button that turns on the front headlight, along with 3 rear lights, 1 in the fender, 2 on the sides. The button there does the turn signals. You can see there's a turn signal left, and it gives you a little audible indication that your turn signal's on, which at first I wasn't too sure about, but now I actually like it. And the horn is there. The horn is actually built into that front light. You can see the speaker right back there. I'm not sure the output on this light. If I can find that again, that will go on the screen here. Again, the key here just turns it off and on. The only bummer is that when it is in the on position, you cannot remove the key. So this tends to, if you lean forward, I sometimes bump this, and I'm not a particularly rotund individual. The display has a pretty wide trigger that I think has a better feel than some of the other ones I've felt, but that's really, these aren't really known for their incredible feeling of degree of like throttle precision. And on the back of the display there is a USB port that allows you to charge most devices I've found. I don't know the exact output on that. A little bit just slip-on grips. I don't have super wide hands, and they are bordering on, they're a little on the small side, honestly, to me. I'm not sure why it feels that way. And this area, as you can tell, I put some more space between the display and the brake lever. It can feel a little cramped to get your hand in here, depends on how you have these oriented with all this stuff. And the voltmeter key and the little blinker setup are not exactly, they aren't high-end appearing pieces of equipment. They're kind of budget looking. That was the cover for the battery charge port. The one thing I have noticed is the battery charger does stick straight down. So if you were to tip over the scooter while charging, I think there's a potential to damage that charging cable. There are these front deck lights that are operated by a switch right down here in front of the kickstand. One thing that's odd about this is they're independent from that light switch on the handlebar, and they will turn on even with the power to the scooter off. So there's a small possibility that this could get turned on or bumped against something and it drain a little. It would take a long time for these LED lights to drain your battery, but it could happen. You got dual spring suspension here on the front. In theory, there's a little bit of adjustability in here. In practicality, I'm not sure with this cap nut and how this is, and I'm not seeing a whole lot of threads in there, so maybe the adjustability is limited on that. And you got pneumatic shocks in the rear, which they seem like they do a really good job. I've ridden some scooters with the same kind of angle and style of shock that didn't do nearly as good job dampening the vibration. So the handlebars here are 23.5 inches wide. So it's a pretty good width for handlebars, like I was saying. There's a little cramped nature to some of the stuff here. A nice wire management, obviously. I think even though it's a dual brake, disc brake scooter, their wire management is nice and it makes it look pretty clean. Handlebar rotation is something I'd like to talk about, and I measured it, you can kind of see here, I measured it about 80 degrees, so not quite, you don't get all 90 degrees, but some people like to know something about the handlebar rotation like that. Another thing that kind of sets the Emove Cruiser apart is it's got and a lot of Emove products is they have a water resistance rating of IP67. Now, I guess in theory that means I could drop it down in here in the river. I don't really know that I would do that. I just think it really gives you a little peace of mind that if you did get caught in a rainstorm or it's raining a little bit, it's not really that big of a deal. All right, so now I'm going to just show you how this thing folds down and kind of how it, the package that it becomes. So I generally drop the handlebar down, and all you have to do is you want to release a little bit of tension on the mechanism right here, so you got to pull these two pieces apart, and then this comes out pretty easily. Over time, you might need to put a little chain lube on this piece as it goes in. What I was going to show is if you have it like this, if you don't have you can't get it to lock into place. So you at least have to bring the handlebar inside of the fender to get it to lock into place. Oh, I got this one real tight. And you fold that in like that. Of course, being almost 55 pounds, it is not really, it's foldable, it's storable. I don't know how portable it is really. And then this is a good position to see. One of the upgrades for this scooter is they got 2.7 by 10 inch by 2.7 inch tubeless tires. So that just gives you, you get a little thicker wall and you get a little more durability on your tire. Some people like that. And then this is another good angle to show this. One of the trade-offs with these newer tires is the way the tire fits in the front forks here. You'll see it's biased a little to this side because of the disc brake mechanism, and that puts a tight clearance on the fender. So what I do is I loosen both sides of the fender and pull the fender as far that direction as you can. One of the other things would be to remove the fender, and it's pretty simple. It's just a bolt on either side. And then the other thing I'm going to look at is maybe even taking the top part of the fender off, because really it's the rear side of the fender that's stopping your splashes. So I'm thinking about kind of cutting this off, a little bit, and then you'll see as you ride, there's an impact that this makes with the fork crown here, and that makes a little noise. All right, so I tried to be quick about that, but there's some stuff to go through, I guess. So now I'm gonna fold it up, throw on the camera, and we're gonna get on the path, and I'm gonna ride through some of the different speed modes, try to give you a feel for how this thing is to ride, and then we're gonna wrap it up with the results of my range. So let's jump on the trail. But the big tires and the torque is good enough that you can go over these small things like this without too much of a problem. And right here, I'm gonna walk over this stuff, but like on a little bit of light gravel like this, the handling is quite good. And so right now we're maxed out. And my GPS says we're at about 13 miles per hour. When the display is just a little optimistic saying 15. So I'm gonna make that live to switch. And I just switched into mode 2, and this is where I ride a lot. As you can see, I mean, the difference in speed is significant. So right there, you probably just heard that front suspension fork crown hitting the fender. Alright, so I'm maxed out in speed mode 2 here, and the display shows 23 while my watch is showing, it's still checking a little bit. We'll see what the camera says, but I think it's closer to 20. So I'm going to take off from a stop here. This is in the highest speed mode. It's pretty flat out there. It should give you a good indication of acceleration, maybe hear the motor a little bit, and get a little top speed and a little hill climb. So not exactly the most quick off the line with the 10-inch tires, but it's still pulling. So I'm getting 27 to 29 on the display, which I'm getting about 23 on the GPS on my watch. I'm going to stay in this highest assist level for just a second. And you can see I'm going to go kind of through these little bit of hills, or a little bit of corners. The handling, I'm going pretty fast. And the handling, it makes for really stable with that little bit of trail, the wider handlebars, and kind of that wide, flat traction pattern on the tires. So I'm going to jump back down to speed mode 2, which is where I typically ride. I don't typically ride crazy speeds. I tend to go, you know, in the 15 to 20 mile per hour range. And yeah, it's just kind of the way I ride. And so that range test will be done accordingly, knowing that you're going to get less range at a higher speed mode. Basically, when you're cruising at this speed, with this scooter, there's almost no sound. You kind of really creep up on people, and that's when having the horn's kind of nice. 3, 2, 1. So I'm going to give you a little idea of how far that just took to stop. And that was going pretty much 20 miles per hour. You can kind of see where I skidded a little bit. I tried to minimize the skid, but I'll have to see what my test results, but I think that's not too bad at that speed. For me, the more time I spend on one of these scooters, the better. So I think stopping distance on a lot of these scooters is, 50% user ability. And I don't have as much time on this scooter as some other ones, so I'm sure I'll be able to break even better as it goes along. So here's a scooter in the back of my car. You can see that it's, the scooter's 48 inches wide when it's unfolded. It's 47.5 when it's folded like this, 15 inches high, about 10 inches wide, which is the deck width. But you see it can fit in the back of most trunks pretty comfortably. So one of Emove's nice features is they have a IP67 waterproof rating. Now IP67 basically corresponds to amount of time submerged in a certain depth of water. I wouldn't advise that. But what it does give you is gives you some comfort and some confidence to be on wet roads like right now, because it rained a lot last night, without really worrying about what's gonna, your scooter should be fine. The one thing you do, if it was actively raining, you would want to put something over this display here. So braking on the scooter is, I'm going to show you a little bit of, so I'm going to just coast here and I'm going to tap the electronic brake to see if we get, I tried this before and I have the electronic braking maxed, and I think maybe it has to do with the heavy weight of the scooter. I'm not feeling very much electronic braking at all. So we got 5-bar battery indication, and currently we've probably went 10 or 11 miles, and I actually see 2 bars of drop, which is actually very surprising to me. 3.4 miles on the display, 3.23 on my watch. So this is definitely doing a better job tracking distance than with that change of the tire size down to 9 inches. So that's good to know. But anyway, we're going to continue on this ride and keep getting you some data. Like I said before, the kickstand's pretty decent, but you can see the scooter, there's a slight downward slant to it, and I've noticed if I parked on a slight downward parking, if the ground was also slanted, there's a tendency for it to want to kind of come off that kickstand. It's just something to be aware of when you're parking this scooter. I'm 5'10" and I have the handlebar at the highest setting, which is 39.5 inches from the deck, as is down in the description. There are no presets. A lot of scooters, their highest point is 41 inches. So the handlebars are slightly lower, just kind of something to know for much taller riders. I'm hoping there's going to be a longer handlebar option for some of these scooters. The wider deck really helps if you're doing longer distances on these scooters, because you can really, for fatigue, you can really change up your foot positions. It's really helpful. All right, just checking in here. I just had a snack. I really recommend on these longer rides to bring a snack. So we got the display saying 14.3 miles. A little optimistic from my watch, which is 13.5 about. We rode another almost 10 the other day. So we're looking at about 24 miles so far. Two displays are pretty close on battery indication. We got 52 and 52.1. It just bumped down from 3 to 2 when I stopped, and then just bumped back up as the battery recovered slightly. So I'm going to use this as a lot of times they say a little bit of a rest break is good on these, to kind of prolong your range. All right, so here we are maxed out, and it's this level 1. Looks like at about 12 miles per hour. 12. I think I got about 13 before. We make that live. We can move to system mode 2. And we get that jump to near 20. I'm saying about 19. It's pretty flat right through here. And then mode 3. Oh. There we go. And we get that another jump. And I'm coming up here, a favorite part of the path of mine. It's a small grove of blue oaks, and I'm going to keep a pretty good amount of speed through here to show handling, a little bit of the ride quality, and just kind of what you can do on these when you've had a little bit of ride time. Even though I haven't had I haven't had as much ride time on this scooter as some of the other ones, and if you get in here, you can get a little more knee bend, and you can really get a lot more aggressive with your handling. All right, so I made it back from my range test here, and here's the results. So I got 32.47 miles on my watch on this trip. It was another 9.6 the other day, so I'm just doing a quick 33, so it looks like about 42 miles if my math is right. Right now I'm a little frozen still from the drive and the ride and everything. All right, so when I left it was 41 degrees feeling like 37. Right now it's 46 feeling like 46. So a little colder, you're gonna lose some range with the temperature. I weigh 175 pounds. I've seen some videos where they said they were getting over 50 miles in the highest speed mode. I'm a little skeptical of that. I got to be honest. I would expect a pretty good drop of maybe 25 to 30% in the highest speed mode. All right, I just want to summarize the results of my range test and the recharge, how much it took to recharge. So, it was about 42 miles, and it took between 12 and 14 hours. I had to leave during that time, so I'm not sure exactly when it topped off the charging. So, quite a long charge period. And because it's just a 2-amp charger, but it took 1,560 watt hours to recharge. Now that's pretty close to the capacity of the battery, and I think some of that might be due to the length of charge time. It increases the electricity usage of the charger slightly, but still kind of getting in there. That number kind of gives it like a 37 watt hours per mile efficiency, which is a little high. I probably expect that to be a little lower. So you'll see in my detail video coming up with acceleration tests and braking and more range tests, trying to get some more clarity on that efficiency kind of number and you know, how much this thing's really using. But I hope this helped you out. A little bit of data on it, a little bit of time, see me ride it, some of the details. If you have any questions, leave those down below. Feel free to ask them. Hope to see you next time. Thanks a lot.
Catch the wave, feel the